Good morning again. It is still morning, yes. Hi there, guys. I'm gonna give a few minutes for people to jump on. I really need your help, right? This is what this one's gonna be about, and I hope my friends join me here. It's gonna be a difficult story for me to tell, but I really feel it's an important one that I get out there, and I am seeking your help to hopefully send this video viral. While we're waiting for a couple of minutes for people to pop on, I'm playing Neil Diamond's Coming to America, right? For those of you, Neil Diamond I love, I really do. And this song, hi Donna, how are you? Thank you for joining us, honey. So I'm hoping you guys are going to help me send this viral. This song, we're all coming to America, the land of opportunity, I think, right? I think that everybody comes here for a better life and hope to give their kids everything that they deserve and the opportunities of a lifetime. That's why we all come here. And I'm an immigrant, so I'm going to share my immigration story. It's not an easy one, so stick with me. It may be a long video, but I really feel that I need to get it out there because we're in a bit of a pickle, and obviously I need your help. So I'm going to turn this down a little bit so I can get started because I know it's going to be long enough as it is. All right. So my name is Michelle Vaughan, and I am originally South African born. Good morning, Teresa. Good morning, Patty. Good morning, Eva. I am South African born. All right. I lived there until I was 29. And I left and I ran away from an abusive husband. And I came to America where my parents were. Good morning, honey. And I had to stay here for, at that time, it was 97. I had to stay here for 18 months to wait for my divorce to go through. To make a very long story short, he threatened horrible things on my children if I left him. So I ran away and I came here. My parents, as I said, were here. I stayed here for 18 months until my divorce was going through. And then I went to England because I do have a British passport and I can live there legally. So at that time, my parents were only work permit holders, so they couldn't sponsor me to stay. So I left and I went to England and I stayed in England for 10 years. I always wanted to come back to America because I feel like America, for me anyway, is a land of opportunity. All right? It has everything that my children could want, and my parents were here. So I wanted to keep our family together in that respect, and I wanted to join them here. So we came back here in October of 2006. I came to see if there was a possibility. I came to see my parents, and that's to see if there was a possibility of us being able to stay. I went into the USCIS department, that's the Immigration Services here in Manhattan. I live in New York. And asked them if it was possible for me to immigrate here. Good morning, Marilyn. Thank you for joining, everybody. I like my shirt. Don't you like my shirt? All right. So I went into the immigration department to ask them if it was possible. It was me and my children that came. All right. My fiance stayed back in England. To ask if it was possible for me to immigrate here, and if so, what would I have to do? They told me, and my mom and I went in together, and they said, because my parents were green card holders, they'd held their green card since, it's 2000, I think they held their green card. Year 2000. So I asked if it was possible for me to immigrate, and they said, yes, of course you can. So they explained to us the information and the forms that we had to fill in and complete to apply for our immigration status here. What it is, we applied for what they call an I-130. Now, an I-130 is a family petition, which says that because you are a family member of either a resident, a permanent resident, which is a green card holder, or a U.S. citizen. So now, if you're a family member of a green card holder, it takes a lot longer for you to be able to get your paperwork. But if your parents were to be applied for their citizenship, you would get it a lot sooner. So that's what we did. So I filed for my I-130 petition, and I basically said to my fiance, all right, we're going to do this. I'm going to get the kids registered in school because my son was going into 7th grade and my daughter, who officially could have gone into 11th because she'd already completed 10th in England, but because of her age, she could repeat 10th. And because the school system is very different, not getting a good service, oh, I'm sorry, honey, because she had to catch up on SATs and Regents and all that thing. So we kept her in 10th. So that's the grades that they were in when they applied, both under the age of 16, because this is important. I said to my fiance, you sell up everything there and join us. And I will start a business in the meantime while we're applying for this paperwork. Just a little background on the both of us. Both of us come from management roles in England. When I was living in South Africa, I was a professor and I was in travel. When I was in England, I was in aerospace engineering, in management, production control, purchasing, that kind of thing. So so I sent off my paperwork. All right. I applied for the I-130 petition. They told us to apply for the I-130 petition to get approved. And my parents would apply for their citizenship. Now, bearing in mind, when you go into the USCIS, the Immigration Department, they look you up on the computer. They can see exactly when you came in. They can tell exactly what you're doing. I happened to be at that point on a visa, so I had a 6-month visa. They also said I should apply for my I-485 and the work permit, which is the green card application. But the problem is that these things go off to different places. Now, if one is approved before the other, they get declined. So I said, you know what, I'll wait a couple of months and I'll send off the petition for the I-130 first, the family petition, which says, we're going to approve you that you are a family member of this citizen, my parents, in other words, that they got to verify that you are a relative. My parents sent off for their citizenship. So we filed in January 2007. My fiance only came here in November of 2006. In the meantime, I had started a cleaning business because it's the quickest business I can get off the road. And even though my parents were supposed to be supporting me, that's how the visa works. They're supposed to support me. I am, at this point, I forget how old I was in 2006 now, but I'm of an age where I can support myself. Nobody needs to support me. So a cleaning business, we registered, and we pay taxes on it. All right? So it's a family business. It's registered in my mother's name. And we work. My fiance and I, we work it. And they told us when we applied for our paperwork that we would have our green card within that year. So that was good. Everything was going to go smoothly. We were all going to be legal within a year. And that is the only reason that we stayed and did this. So my priority date, which they give you on your I-130 petition, which is when they receive it, because this is relevant. I know I might be confusing you with things, and if I do, please ask me and I will explain it. Priority date is the date that your application is received by the department in Chicago or wherever it goes. Mine was February 2007. The application alone for my petition to say whether I was actually a family member was approved in April of 2008. So it took a whole year just for them to approve that application. In the meantime, my parents are going for citizenship. This was an interesting one, I will tell you that much. My parents they went for their first interview in June of 2007. Now, in order for my parents to apply for their citizenship, you have to pay, at that time it was $660 for the application. You have to be fingerprinted, and you have to pass a test, all right? An immigration test. It's a history. There's 100 things they could ask you, and they only ask you about 3 or 4, I think it is. They have done this test in AP, which is Advanced Social Studies classes in high school, and most of them have failed. So it's not an easy test that they have to study for. They passed the test. Then you have to go for an interview. They both went for the interview, and even though they'd held their green card since 2007, my parents had to leave for 18 months because work was not available here in the States. My father's company moved, and he had to go to El Salvador. While he was in El Salvador, the company shut down here. He was in the textile trade, and the textile trade literally died in New York. When his company shut down, he looked for a job back here in America, could not get a job. So he went to England. When a job became available, he came back. They had only been back in the country, I think it was January of 2006. So, and the immigration services can see all this. When they went for their interview in 2007, they were told they hadn't been back. They both got declined for their citizenship, by the way. They were told they hadn't been back in the country long enough. All right? Now, and they don't give you your money back, by the way. When they decline you, you don't get any money back. So my mom and I made another trip back into the USCIS department and asked, how is this possible? why were we declined? What they said was you had to be in the country for 36 months out of 5 years consecutively in order to apply. Hi, Heather. In order to apply for your citizenship. This was not told to us before. So we had to wait. So we had to wait for them to be back in the country for 36 months out of 5 years. That meant we applied again in 2009. Now, it was June 2009. My daughter was about to graduate from college. In the meantime, we're operating a business. We actually bought a house together so that we all live together in one house. My parents live here, my children live here, and I live here because we support each other. All right, the business supports us. They were working at the time. My father did lose his job. And and they both now are in social services, Social Security. They're both retired. So my daughter was graduating with a 96 average. And I asked them if it was possible when she was about to go to college if I could apply for a student visa for her. Because bearing in mind, when they graduate, they got to go to college. Well, she wanted to go to college. Going to college here, I am very fortunate, I will say this much. Going to college here in the States, even with our status, at that time, my daughter just told you, she graduated from high school in 2009. All right, I knew that already, honey. She was about to graduate with a 96 average. All right, so smart kids. I will be honest and I'll tell you, my kids are smart, and I'm very proud of them for what they've done. It's not easy moving 3 countries. But I asked if I could apply for a student visa. The immigration services said that would not be a good idea because it would null them of my paperwork for the green card, because they are beneficiaries under me, right? They're my children. So wait the year or wait until my father gets his citizenship. When my father gets his citizenship, they said I would go to the next counter and I would change my status, which means I would be able to apply for my green card. That's what I was told. Okay, so my father reapplied, my parents both reapplied in June of 2009. Now it costs them $1,350. In the meantime, we're just in limbo. We're holding. We're waiting. It's been 3 years we've been here, which is okay. We work. We pay for a roof over our heads. It's great. I have no problems with that. Here's where the problem came in. So again, fingerprinted. Again, passed the test that they had to study for. 2 different interviewing offices, because when you go for your interview, you don't go to the same interviewing office. My dad went to one, my mother went to another. And again, we went into the immigration department to make sure that it was okay for us to apply, that we had been here for long enough to apply for their citizenship. My paperwork's now sitting on the back burner waiting for this. My mother's interviewing officer said 4 years and 1 day. My dad's interviewing officer said 5 years and 1 day. My mother fought with her interviewing office. She said, this is ridiculous. We've been into the USCIS. They've told us 36 months out of 5 years consecutively, which we have now been here for. Even though they held their green card since 1993. Well, they've held residence here since 1993. So my mother fought for hers. And the woman eventually said, I think it was a woman, I'll give it to you. All right, whatever, you can have it. My mother and father come out of the interviewing process for my father to find out that my mother has been approved and my father has been declined. How does this happen? Please tell me, because I don't get this at all. What happened was, so then we go back into the USCIS office and say to them, this is ridiculous. How is it that 2 different interviewing offices can give you 2 different timelines, and your own office told us that it was only 36 months and so that's 3 years and 1 day out of 5 years. They said, you can appeal it. Well, first of all, we had a long interview with a lady, and it's cut a very long story short. She basically said that because my father was now married to a citizen, he could get his paperwork like that, and my petition, it didn't matter that it was under my father. I could still get it because now my mother was a citizen. So I go down, I'm very elated at this news. We go down to get the forms because everything's on a different floor in that department. Go down to get the forms, and we are told that, so there's a gentleman standing back there, and he goes, nope, you can't. He doesn't even know my story. But he goes, no, you can't. So I say, I don't understand what you're talking about because you don't even know me. And he says, go to the 7th floor. So I go to the 7th floor, which is the citizenship department, and we explain our whole story again to them. And they basically said, nope, you cannot get it. My father has to wait another year and reapply. You can appeal. You can appeal the fact that they declined you. It costs you $600 to appeal. And they'll probably decline it because they're not going to admit that they're at fault or that they made a mistake. So you're better off waiting the year and reapplying. All this time, I'm assuming that I can wait. While I am here, I can wait for this application. I can wait to be approved, and then I can get my green card. Like that. So we were frustrated. So we saw a lawyer. And I paid $200 for the lovely privilege of seeing a lawyer. That's the other thing. I never went through a lawyer in the beginning because I can speak English. I can ask questions. And, you know, what better way to find out how to immigrate here than going to the horse's mouth, which is the immigration department? Yeah, no. So this lawyer told me going to the immigration department to apply for your immigration is like going to the IRS and asking them how to cheat on your taxes. Really? All right, apparently it's okay that they don't know their jobs. It's okay that they give you wrong information. That's not their fault. It apparently is ours because we never went through a lawyer. And the reason I didn't go through a lawyer, just so that I can explain that, is that my parents, it took them 7 years and almost $22,000 to get their green card because of a lawyer, because the lawyers messed them around. So I figured, and when I asked if there was any good immigration lawyers, and I'm not saying there isn't, there are some, I was told, no, is there such a thing? Now, I'm not decrying immigration lawyers. I now have 2 good immigration lawyers. But it's such a minefield to navigate this immigration system that they don't always get kept up to date. They don't know all the laws, and it's so difficult to follow. The law is very ambiguous, and they are changing it lately, but it's still ambiguous. So this lawyer that I spent $200 for the privilege of speaking to, her response to me waiting was, don't I know an American I can marry? That's illegal. And I was trying not to do anything illegal. In my opinion, I was trying to do everything the right way. All right? By asking the questions, by filling in the forms, by obeying the rules. So I left there very disheartened, and I'm also engaged. So why would I marry somebody else? That's like, I wouldn't do that. It's illegal. Just period. I don't want to give up my chances completely. In the meantime, so now we're waiting. We got to wait another year for my father. In the meantime, my daughter is now going off to college. Fortunately, as I was saying, fortunately in the state of New York, they don't penalize us for the fact of our immigration status. They allowed my daughter to go to college. She went to Stony Brook as a New York resident. So I get to pay New York residency fees, which is I'm very grateful for. They also, my daughter graduated with a scholarship. She does not qualify for that scholarship. Why? Because she didn't have a Social Security number. All right? We do not have Social Security numbers. She couldn't get a driver's license. All right? Because without enough points of identification, you cannot get a driver's license. I cannot get a driver's license in America. And by the way, I hold a South African license and I hold a British license. I've taken my test in both countries. They will not allow me to take the test in this country because I don't have enough points of identification. Because I cannot get a utility bill in my name. I cannot get anything in my name. All right? We're only here by the grace of my parents in that everything is in their name. We do not qualify. So I know that people are under the impression that immigrants qualify for everything. I don't. Maybe some of them do, but I know I don't. For some unknown reason, I seem to fall in that gap. Mostly because I come from Britain. Mostly because I don't come from some kind of war-torn country, apparently. So the fact that I come from Britain, I do not qualify for anything. And I'm okay with that. So let me explain that first off. I don't think that any immigrants should qualify for anything. I don't want benefits. I don't want a handout. I just want to be able to do the things that everybody else can do. I want to be able to fly. I can't fly. I want to be able to get my driver's license. I want to be able to get health insurance. None of this is available for me. None. I just have to stay healthy. Knock on wood. I'm sorry, I digress. All right, so my daughter goes to college. Even though she qualified for a scholarship, she wasn't eligible to get it because she didn't have a Social Security number. The first year, she makes orientation leader, which is great. Looks good on your resume. You get paid for that generally over the summer, right? You get paid for that. She could not get paid for that. I asked them if they could offset it against her tuition and her boarding, and they said no. So I had to pay for the privilege of my daughter working there for the summer. It cost me $1,650 for her to work over the summer as an orientation leader, so it looked good on her resume. Okay? I didn't care because that's what it required and that's what we did. She could not, as I said, get a driver's license, so she could not drive. 2009, June. Oh, no, that's when my mother was approved. Sorry. So we waited the following year. And we applied for my father's. So my dad got approved in April of 2011. We applied November 1st, 2010. Cost $675 again. He had to sit the test again. And the questions do change, depends on who's in government and whatever. But he had to learn, again, 60-something years of age, had to learn a test that most AP students can't pass. But he passed it. Thank you very much, Dad. I said to him, please, God, don't fail. And he got sworn in April of 2011 in Sagamore Hill. It was some special memorial for the first lot of immigrants that ever came here. I then went into the immigration department. I went, Dad's got his citizenship. Great. We can get approved, right? I can apply for my green card now. To be told that there is such a thing called a visa bulletin date. Up to this point, I had never been told about this visa bulletin date, and that your date had to be current in order for you to apply for your green card. So back in 2010, it read February 06. Now, remember I told you my priority date was February 2007. So that's the date that they're waiting to become current. It means that they only allow so many immigrants in at a particular year, from different sections of the country. If you want to know what it is, look at travelstate.gov. It tells you. So, my priority date is February 2007, which means I need to make sure that they're working on my current paperwork or the paperwork that was filed in February 2007. So I was 1 year away. So I go, okay, 1 year. I've already waited 3-4 years now at this point. I can wait 1 year. In January of 2011, I look at the visa bulletin date at this point because it's important to me, right? So I'm watching the date. I'm making sure it's moving. January 2011, this date goes back 1 year, which means I have to wait an extra year. In May, no, I went to see a lawyer. So then it moved another 2 years back. All right, so it became, I had to wait another 3 years to become current. So that was from 2011, I'd have to wait another 3 years. So in March of 2014 is when my date would become current. When I inquired as to why this date had gone back, I was told it's a thing called retrogression. Now, retrogression is where they suddenly catch up with themselves, apparently. There's really no explanation for it. It's just that their paperwork caught up with themselves, and they realized they had granted them far more visas than were available, so now your date's going to move back. So that means you have to wait another 3 years. I went to see another lawyer up in White Plains to try and get some kind of a semblance of what can I do to try and bypass the situation. This is ridiculous. Somebody must be able to do something somewhere. And that lawyer said to me, first of all, I told her I go into the USCIS department all the time, right? And I inquire because why not? I'm going to the horse's mouth to ask the question. And she said to me, you're going where? You're going into the USCIS? Do you know you can't do that? You'll get deported. That nearly sent me on the floor. All right? Because at this point, up to this juncture, I did not know I was illegal at all. I was under the assumption that because I was here applying for my visa and waiting patiently at this point, very patiently, that I was legal to stay. I knew I couldn't fly. I knew I didn't have a social security number, but I was filing taxes and I was doing what I could do. Yeah, I'm illegal. That was the first time I found out I was illegal and shouldn't be here applying for this visa. I should have been back in England applying for it. I don't know if you understand how scary that thought was, that I had now put my kids in a situation that they were illegal. To live in the shadows, to live in fear that you could be deported at any moment in time, is scary. Now, most people look at me and they go, immigration doesn't apply to you. You're not Hispanic, you're not whatever. They wouldn't deport you. Yes, they can. Yes, they can. If I get somebody who doesn't like immigrants, I can be deported. Like that. Now, that is not, am I fearful about being deported? Not really. I can go to England. I can live quite happily in England, quite frankly. But a couple of things with that. First of all, my kids have a life here now. All right? My kids are now both graduated high school. My son is studying engineering. All right? He was at Binghamton. I had to move him to Farmingdale because, we have a cleaning business and that's all very well. It's my fiance and I that we're the only two people who operate the business. You know how many houses you have to clean in a day to be able to afford college? Because like I said to you, we do not qualify for college loans. So everything that we do is on my mother's credit card. Now, I don't know if you have a $40,000, $60,000, $70,000 credit limit. We don't. So I have to work to pay off that credit card at whatever interest rate that credit card is at in order for my kids to go to college. All right? So yeah, I had to bring them home. He couldn't stay at Binghamton, which is an awesome school, and he got admitted into the School of Engineering, which is a great honor. Great honor. Having to move him here local to Farmingdale, which is just another very good school. It's a SUNY school, so I pay a lot less. Well, not pay less. It's less than a private school. Could never afford a private school. Because I moved him back here, he lost a year because a lot of the things didn't transfer. And so he has to spend an extra year at college. This lawyer in White Plains informed me about that. And basically, her first words to me after I explained my story was, "You're screwed." Isn't that nice? I paid $300 for the privilege of being told I'm screwed and that I'm illegal. So the decision at the time was, do we leave and go back to England? The issue with leaving and going back to England is that the minute I leave, because I've now been here past 3 years, the minute I leave, I trigger a 10-year ban, which means I cannot come back into this country for 10 years at all, under any circumstance. And I probably lose the privilege of getting my green card. And some people may say, well, okay, 10 years, it's not a bad thing. My parents live here. My brother lives here. If, God forbid, anything should happen to my parents, if you think about this, if anything happens to your parents, you want to be there for them, right? You want to be there to help and support them. I can't. I wouldn't be able to come back here and see them. I'm not going to get upset about this. I'm trying to stay very professional about this. Because I am passionate, all right? And I'm trying to keep my family together, and I need your help to do this. I would not be able to come back and see them for 10 years. We have a stepson in the UK who got married, and I couldn't go for the wedding. They've had a baby. We have a grandchild. I could not go to England and see our grandchild. I still can't see her. I can see her on FaceTime, but I can't go and visit her. I have a brother and my sister-in-law in England. I can't go visit them. I can't go visit my friends in South Africa. These are things and opportunities that people don't understand what affects immigrants. All right? Immigration reform is required, guys. I promise you that. So after leaving that lawyer, I did a bit more research because I've become very au fait with looking up things online, and it is a minefield when you're looking up immigration. There is such a thing called the Child Protection Act that was passed in August of 2002 that says protecting children from aging out. Now, aging out is a process where after you're 21, you age out of your parents' application. This protection was brought in to protect children from aging out. There's a little bit of a flaw in that, and I'll explain that a bit later on. So we waited another 3 years for our date to become current. In the meantime, and I know a lot of you sit there and say, why is Obama passing these laws? The one law that he passed was something called a DACA visa. Now, a DACA visa is Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals. And what that is saying we're not going to hold the children responsible for what their parents have done to them. Essentially, do you want to hold me responsible or my children responsible for what I did to them? All right? I essentially brought them here. They did not ask for it. They did not say, get a choice in the matter. I mean, of course I spoke to them about it, but they did not understand the full implications of what I was doing to them. Did I, in my wildest dreams, think I would get them illegal? No, I wouldn't have done it otherwise. So now, the DACA visa What that does is it allows them, it doesn't give them citizenship. It doesn't give them legality to stay here. It does not. It defers them so that they stand less chance of getting deported. But if they commit a crime or an offense, they could still be deported. Let me tell you that. But what it does do is it gives them the opportunity to get a driver's license. I don't know, when you all turned 18, did you want to drive a car? Yeah. My son worked very hard to buy his car, albeit off the books, because that's all the jobs he could get. He worked very hard, doing whatever it took to buy his first car, and it sat there for a year and a half without him being able to drive it, because we were waiting. The DACA visa gave them the right to go for their driver's license, so they have American driver's licenses. It also gives them a social security number that allows them to work. All right? It's a 2-year visa, temporary visa. On average, it cost me $3,000 for them to have that privilege, that visa. He also passed the law that they can extend that visa. So every 2 years, I have to apply for this visa for them so that they can actually work and do what they have to do. My daughter's graduated college now. All right? So she can work and earn money. Because why would you have a lot of people graduating from college and be useless to society? How is this feasible? Oh, let me just go back to one little point that I don't want to forget, because this is also relevant in my mind. When my father got declined when my mother got approved and my father got declined, do you know what his interviewing officer said to him? If he tried to explain why he'd left the country, obviously he had to go where work was and support his family. The interviewing officer said to him, "You would have been better off coming here and going on benefits. I would have granted you citizenship." Really? Coming here and going on benefits instead of going to where the work was, and we would grant you citizenship. Now, where does that make sense? You're encouraging people to go on benefits in order to gain a green card or to gain a citizenship in this country? How do you advocate that? How is that a feasible explanation? My father said to him, "So long as I have an able bone in my body, I will work to support my family, and I will go wherever that I need to go to do that." That's what the immigration officer said to him. This is what you have to deal with when you're going through the immigration process. All right, so my children have DACA visas. Just moving on. I don't want to keep this too long, but I do want to get my message out there. So my date became current March of 2014. Elated at the fact that my date became current, I can now go and file this form to apply for my immigration status, my green card. I go back into the department. Well, no, by this point, I'm now working with a lawyer who was referred to us, very good lawyer, who was when she read our story, and I have a 6-page story all typed up, because we have written to senators. I've written to the Department of Homeland Security, DHS. I have written to anybody you could possibly imagine who may be able to help us, Congress people. And the only response we have got back from them, in order to help us, just see if they can do something, is that immigration reform is imminent. Please be patient. It's 10 years. I think I've been patient long enough. 10 years. I have stayed in the shadow and kept my mouth shut. I'm done. I'm done with keeping my mouth shut. All right? At one point, my son used to say to me, "Mom, when I graduate college, if we're still fighting to stay in a country that doesn't want to keep us, what am I fighting for?" All right? But you ask yourself, which is their country? Which country are they going to go home to? They were only about 4 years in South Africa, at best. They were 10 years in England, and we've been 10 years here. They now have partners in their lives. I'm sorry, this is the life they want. This is where my family is. So this lawyer said to us, so our date became current. Now, I can leave. And you have to go abroad to file for your interview, by the way, to get your green card. If I left to file for my interview to get my green card, I have to apply for a waiver. This waiver says, "Please forgive me for having been here for the last 10 years illegally." Not only do I have to say, "Please forgive me for having been here for 10 years illegally," I have to prove extreme hardship in the case of my parents, that they need me here. Because if they don't need me here, they're not going to grant me this waiver. If I don't have a valid reason for wanting to be here, in other words, some hardship to the citizen, I will not get approved. If I left at that time in 2014 to go and apply for this, it would take up to a year for them to decide that they're going to approve my waiver or not. That means I have to take my kids out the country, out of college for 1 year. Up to 1 year, by the way. It could be longer. And so far, the way things are going in this paperwork, it could be 2, 3, 4 years. In the meantime, because I have left the country, I've triggered a 10-year ban. But if that waiver gets approved, then obviously my 10-year ban gets rescinded. And then I can apply for my interview to get my green card. If that person, the consul general, whoever, wherever I'm going, decides they don't like the look of my face or whatever reason, they could say no. And guess what? I can't come back for 10 years. Do I want to take that chance? Would you take that risk? Would you take the risk of not being able to come back? Besides which, I have a business. So while I'm gone for that year, I have to A, support my family in the other country. So I got to get a job, a house, or whatever. And my fiance has to stay here and try and keep our business afloat on his own to pay the bills that we have here, to pay for the college loans that we're already paying for, to pay for the roof we have over our head with my parents. It's not feasible. So we decided to stay and hope for immigration reform. Hope that somebody will allow us to apply for this waiver here in this country. Shortly after our date became current, the DHS passed a law that said, the DHS, by the way, for those of you who don't know, is the Department of Homeland Security. And I think it was Jay Johnson. Jay Johnson passed a law that said immediate relatives can file for this waiver here. So once you get your waiver approved, then you will leave the country and you interview, so you're only out the country for 10 days. But if your waiver is approved, you stand more chance of being able to come back in. I am not an immediate relative to my mother and father. Go figure, right? They gave birth to me, but I'm not an immediate relative because I am over 21. So now I fall in a different family preference category. So my category was not approved to be able to file for that waiver here. He did say, however, he was going to roll it out to the next category the following year. Okay, we can wait another year. So 2015, I think it was, Obama passed that executive action, which I know everybody was up in arms about. I know that there's a lot of things in that executive action that I don't necessarily agree with. All right? Me being able to apply for my waiver was amongst that lot. Okay? So the rollout to the next family preference category was in that executive action. Now, unless you follow immigration, you may not know that executive action was held up in federal court. Well, was stopped in federal court, for want of a better word, all right? Federal court stopped it. Said, not happening, not gonna, no how, no way. April of this year, Obama tried to put it forward to the Supreme Court. It was supposed to be heard in April. He was going to put this executive action forward to the Supreme Court. Jack Scalia died. In case those of you who don't know, he was a Supreme Court judge. We have 9 judges, all right? It's one of our third arms in government, in case you don't know. The Supreme Court justice system. Jack Scalia died. They will not allow him to appoint another Supreme Court judge until we get the new president in, whoever that may be. So it did get heard in the Supreme Court, but guess what? 4-4. So deadlocked. So no change. Good news, however. So that was a kibosh. I was just like, oh, okay, well, this figures. Nothing's happening. Nothing's moving forward. We're just waiting. We're waiting for immigration reform. We're waiting for somebody to make a decision about something happening in immigration. Please, God. At least, if nothing else, let your people know, or the immigration department should know their job. They put us in this situation, but I can't hold them liable. I can't hold them accountable for not knowing their jobs that put us in this situation. I can't, apparently. It's not their fault. Apparently, it's my fault. For what? For asking the right questions to the right people? Apparently the wrong people now. July of this year, they passed a law that now says I can apply for my waiver here. Thank the Lord. It became applicable in August of this year. August 29th, we can start applying for the waiver here. So now I've moved lawyers because my lawyer, it's not within her realm. There's specialties in these law. So we go to this lawyer on Thursday. Yay, file for green card, let's do this, file for the waiver, prove extreme hardship on the case of my parents, that they really need me here, and I can do that. My father has COPD and emphysema, so I can really do this. And they need us. We need to be here. That's just what it is. To be told that my kids have aged out. My kids have aged out. The Child Protection Act that they've just kind of modified or made simpler to understand, I don't know which, has now states that they're not holding their date. So because they're over 21, they've aged out. So they don't have any path right now to be able, so they've basically come off my petition. They do not have any path of becoming legal right now, except marriage. Except marriage. They can get married, and then they will be legal. Now, my son is 21. He'll be 22 next month. My daughter is 25. Would you ask your kids to get married to stay here? I wouldn't. Nobody should have to get married under those circumstances. They shouldn't. You should want to get married because you want to get married, not to be legal. Okay? I can get my green card, which is great. I can then sponsor them. But guess what? It's going to be another 10-year process for them to get theirs. The only reason I do any of what I've done so far is for a better life and a better opportunity for my children. I'm going to try and say all this without getting upset. And now I've been told that that's not going to be possible. All right? And the ironic situation is that they told me as well, by the way, I have a fiance, as you know. I was not to get married to him until after I got my green card. I can then marry him, and then he will be able to get eligible to get a green card. How does this system make sense? Even if I had not been applying for this visa in this country and I had been applying for it in England, which apparently is what I should have done, my kids would still have aged out. So why would I want to immigrate here if my children have no chance of immigrating here? I thought America was all about keeping families together, family unity, all right? Building a country strong of togetherness, families, opportunity, you know? And that's what I was hoping for my family. And right now I've been told my kids have aged out. I need, and it's the interpretation of the law. This is how ironic this is. So each lawyer could interpret this differently. So the Child Protection Immigration Act does not, all they do is, so I told you before, it took them a year for them to approve my original petition, which is saying that I am a family relative of my parents. They take that year and they subtract it from what their age is when you're applying for this waiver or the green card. So my daughter would have already aged out. They do not take into account when was it, March 2014? So the 8 years that I waited for my date to become current. They don't take that into account at all. That's irrelevant. So this Child Protection Status Act does not take into account 8 years you have to wait for your date to become current. Doesn't that make feasible sense that if you brought your children before the age of adulthood, that their date would freeze, that their age would freeze, and not that they would age out? Then they bring in a form that I could have filed for my son, could have filed. Again, we were not aware of this. Clearly it's not broadcasted. Nobody knows the law. I could have filed a form and said, please hold my son's age, but this needed to be filed a year after the date became current. Who knew? I was working through a lawyer. It's not her fault. The law is so ambiguous. So, that's my story in a nutshell. I hope I explained it well. I know there's many facets to it. All I'm asking, I don't want any handouts. I agree with everybody in this country on the immigration situation. I believe that we should all be doing things legally. And I tried. I really did try. Believe me, I never did anything maliciously. I just want my family to be able to stay together. I want to be able to do the right thing. I want to be able to, I pay taxes, but I want to be able to contribute as much as I can to society. I belong to the Chamber of Commerce in my community. I want to be able to help people. We're as much a part of this community as anybody else is. And for the sake of somebody saying, yes, you can file for your kids, that's all I need. That's all I need. I need to get this in front of, and senators and Congress people can make a decision. They can help you if they choose to. Most of them just don't choose to. Now, am I fearful for what's going to happen in the future with the government? Yeah, I'm a little bit fearful. Because any one of them could repeal. Well, Trump says he's going to repeal the DACA visa. If I take him his word at face value, that basically puts my children in a worse situation than they are right now. He's going to kick all of us out, apparently. That includes me. All right? That includes my children, because I can get my green card now. They cannot. That includes my children. All right? My children should not have to get married to stay in this country. That's just the plain fact of it. It's the principle of it. It's the principle that we applied and did the right things, and I need somebody to help me affect change here. So I hope, and I appreciate, and I appeal to all of you to help me send this viral. All right? Because this is the things that people do not understand about immigrating to this country. Wouldn't you want engineers? I know you're short of them. I don't want any handouts. I don't want benefits. I really don't. I want to be able to get medical insurance, though. I want to be able to pay for medical insurance. I want to be able to get a driver's license. I travel on my British license that I have to renew every year. All right? All I want is to be able to be afforded the same opportunities that everybody else is. That's all. So this is my appeal to you. I am grateful for every single person of you that stuck with me through this video. I know it's a long one and I apologize. Please help me share it and send it viral. That's all I'm asking. All right? I love and I'm grateful for every single one of you. Thank you very much.